Well, welcome everybody. We have the pleasure every year here at Coverings to kind of have what we call the State of the Stone Industry Update. And from year to year, we talk about a variety of industry topics. Oftentimes, it tends to be what's new in the industry. We chose for this session to talk about industry pressures. And so before we get started and I have a chance to have our panelists introduce themselves, just a little bit of a gauge of who's in the audience. How many international companies do we have? Those outside of North America. How about quarriers? Importers, stone distributors, fabricators, installers, restoration, the stone media. Okay, everyone knows Stone Update is here, Stone World is here. We're glad to have our friends here. How many of you hope we talk about tariffs? Silica? What other topics are you hoping we talk about? I think we've got our agenda. All right. And I missed, how many equipment and tooling suppliers? Thanks to our friends that supply us all. So we want to thank you again. So as we get started, my name is Jim Heeb. I'm the CEO for the Natural Stone Institute, one of a number of trade associations that serve our industry. And I am indeed honored to have our panelists with us. And I'd like each of them to introduce themselves briefly. We'll start with my board president, Evan Cohen.
Hello, everybody. Oh, the microphone's on. Good. All right. Hi.
It works.
Welcome, good morning, and happy Coverings. We're all here. Evan Cohen, Quality Marble and Granite. We're an importer and distributor on the West Coast. So California and Arizona, we have some distribution locations as well, primarily for residential and some commercial as well. And I would say that I'm here also to talk about and learn about some tariffs and the Silica as well. So in California, obviously, is anybody here from California? Raise your hand if you are. Okay, so California is a big heart of what's going on right now with the Silica, so we're living it every single day. And so I'll get into a little bit about what I'm seeing, because I think it's really important to expose it out there into our industry so everybody's aware.
Fun fact about Evan Cohen.
Well,
put you in a spot.
Deer in headlights.
not like putting me on the spot there for sure. Let's see. Fun fact, my wedding was filmed on Lifetime TV. That's how you may know me, right? I'm famous from that. One-hit wonder.
One-hit wonder.
That's it.
That's right.
And I guess before I put you on the spot, I should have remembered my contract's up this year. Sorry about that.
I didn't
Katie
write
Jensen.
that down.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Katie Jensen, co-founder and CEO of Triton Stone Group. So we're also an importer and distributor. We're headquartered in New Orleans, so we kind of take care of the east side of the country, more or less. In addition to stone and quartz, we're also large importers of sinks and tooling products. So, we kind of have a broad spectrum across many countries that we import from. So tariffs are definitely at the top of heartache these past few weeks. So yeah, it would be great to kind of talk with everyone.
Great. Fun fact.
Fun fact. Well, I have 4 amazing children, and this past summer I was able to take them to a quarry in Africa. We went to the Bianca Rhino Quarry, and it was quite amazing to bring my children there, first of all, and to see the quarry. So it was awesome.
Great. Nice. Everyone say hello to Jeff Erickson.
Hello, everybody. Jeff Erickson. I am co-founder of a company called Cutting Edge Countertops. It's a fabricator based in Ohio, but we work in Michigan and Indiana as well. Joined the NSI a few years back, and this year as the vice president, and then next year I'll fill Evan's role, and then go from there. But yeah, I'm here. As a fabricator, we don't import a whole lot, so we haven't had to play those anticipation games about what to do and what to freeze and what to start. And but our eyes are wide open. We have taken some proactive measures to get ahead of some things, but we're going to be I'm as eager to learn as anybody else is here, so I'd love to hear some of your all perspective about what you guys are doing. Certainly, it's going to raise our costs. It's going to affect our customers in some ways. I think just the uncertainty is almost unbearable at the moment.
Fun fact?
Fun fact, geez, I don't know. Saving the world one countertop at a time in Ohio.
Nice. And everyone, our friend Rick Stemick. Rick?
Hello, everyone. Rick Stemick, CEO partner of BB Industries. We are a tool and consumable distributor, national. And I guess as excited as everybody to be here. And my fun fact is I get to sit next to the most important person in the industry, or whatever his title was last year. But
Thanks, Rick.
we're excited to be here and excited to learn.
Yeah, very good. And obviously, I'm Jim Heeb, CEO for the Natural Stone Institute. My picture isn't up there. I really want you all to come to our party tomorrow, okay? So everyone come, because we can continue the conversation there. If you're not familiar with the Natural Stone Institute, I mean, hopefully you are, but want to encourage you to stop down at our booth. There is a fabricator stage in the 4,000 aisle, and please stop down and see us. But we represent every segment of the industry. We do a lot of technical stuff, education stuff, and right now just knee-deep in the Silica stuff, and we'll talk about that as well. You know, what do we do? It's advocacy, it's education, it's training to be an advocate for you. If you are not a member of the Natural Stone Institute, strongly encourage you to join. We've got great partners all over the world. We have members in 50 countries. But what I like to say we do best is connecting cool people with cool people. So that's why you got to come to that party, okay? Do want to do a shout out to all of our sponsors. You will notice there's a couple trade associations on that list. We're doing a lot of collaboration with ISFA right now on the Silica front. And just many thanks to our friends at Central Rochas in Brazil. Rick, thank you for supporting the party. Jeff, thank you for supporting the party, but hope that you will make it. Back to our agenda, we are going to talk about tariffs. We're going to talk about Silica. Anything else you want to talk about? This is to be interactive. So if you have something to say, a perspective to share, please do. But I thought we would start it off with, because a lot of hands went up for tariffs, we want to disclose here at Coverings, officially debut our predictions for tariffs. Are you ready for that?
That's it. Nailed it.
I think we nailed it.
Yep.
Are we ready to move on to Silica? So, Evan, we'll start with you, and we'll bounce around a little bit, but please, if you have something to say, raise your hand. I'm going to get off the stage, come to you. Evan, everybody knows you're a distributor. You've got a facility in California, one in Arizona. How are you navigating all this?
That's a big question. Well, so obviously importing, we don't really know, right, what's going to happen, what's going to go on. To give you a little backstory, last week I was speaking to my customs attorney, and I said, hey, what are some things I should bring up about tariffs? And, you know, just kind of from his perspective. And his answer was this. It was a great answer. He says, I was at a customs convention where they had experts coming to talk about tariffs. And they told you everything what's going on with the tariffs. And he said by the time he got on the plane to go home, everything changed. So what are we doing to navigate tariffs? And I think as most people, you have to have discussions constantly about what could be and have your contingency plans in place as to what might be. At the end of the day, I think what's really great is, you know, we sit down and talk a lot. We were just in New Orleans, and everybody's talking about what we think is going to happen, and, you know, nobody really knows. But we have to prepare, and so it's creating challenges across the board, not just what we're seeing here. We're seeing ripple effects with our factories who are getting massive orders now, so now there's delays. We're not sure when we're going to get it, and then there's going to be shipping delays that we're going to see too because of the Chinese tariffs and lack of shipments that are happening there as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want to take up the whole stage because I can probably talk for an hour on what I'm seeing. So, yeah.
Anybody's cell phone goes off, that's a $100 donation to the Natural Stone Foundation. Just want to clear that up
And you
right now.
have to go to the party. You have to go to the party.
And I should have introduced Evan Cohen's our board president. Katie's our immediate past president. Jeff is our vice president. He'll be president of the Natural Stone Institute next year. And Rick is one of our directors of the Natural Stone Foundation. So Rick, that plug was for a donation for the foundation.
$100 if your phone goes off.
Yeah.
Katie, what's some of the best advice you've gotten from either people within your company or your suppliers, your customers? What's some of the best advice you've gotten about tariffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's doubling down on certainty, right? I mean, I think transparency of information is really important. So, you know, I talk with a lot of suppliers, and then also on the other hand, we have all our customers. So I think it's communicating with your customers is very important. I think there's going to be a lot of misinformation in the market because some people are going to choose to raise prices immediately. Some people have inventory on hand. So there's going to be a lot of navigation that's going to have to happen in the next 90 days, and then also see where it settles. I think there will be disparity of where you bring in material from, depending on the tariff rates. So maybe just hope you're lucky, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Jeff, you commented that, hey, you're a fabricator, okay? You just got to kind of go with the flow. But I would imagine you've got peers that are freaking out over this. So what perspective would you add?
Well, our strategy, like COVID, was to stay up with price increases as quickly as we can, because I think that's a mistake if you're relaxed about it as a fabricator or as any business, really. If your costs are going up and you let that ride too long and it eats your margin, it's just something you really need to pay attention to. So we're probably going to maintain the same strategy as we did in COVID and do that. I guess what I'm most worried about is, what effect is it going to have on our customers? We're in the Rust Belt. 24 was a bit slow in the second half. 25 is and it's just that's what worries me the most. It's not managing the increases. It's more like what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to sell countertops?
Rick, you're in a unique position because you're a supplier of consumables, but also you and your staff are in a lot of fabrication shops every day. Perspective that you would add, advice you would give anybody that's concerned about tariffs?
Well, I think there's obviously uncertainty, right? Disruption, things that we've just heard from everybody else up here. But I think we're pretty well schooled over the last 4 years and what to experience through this. I mean, COVID and supply chain issues, and there's always disruption. And so for us, we basically have learned, as everybody in this room has over these last couple of years, that you have to have a war room set up in your organization that says, what is the impact today? What is our competitors doing out there? How do we navigate through that? I mean, being a national distributor, we have several different competitors, and with that environment, you're looking at each geographical area, you're looking at every product line, the country of origin is different, so there's the dynamics is crazy. But being able to try to navigate through that, I think if you rush to any decision, as Evan said early on, hour after hour it changes. Yeah. So I think it's making sure that you're communicating what you're doing, why you're doing it, and trying to execute the best you can, and just be prepared to move and navigate.
Certainly recognize that today is the first day of coverings. And just in the short time we've been together, just this morning on the show floor, I bumped into a friend from China, a friend from Italy, a friend from India, and every one of them said the same thing. The U.S. market is still the #1 market that we're looking at, and so we'll ride out this storm. So what questions or comments or best practices do you have from the audience that you'd like to ask or share? Anyone? Chris.
What is the best resource that you've found to stay up on what these current tariffs are?
Okay.
I'm not finding anything.
So Chris's question, everyone say hello to Chris Bird from Texas. Welcome, Chris. He just shared, he goes, what's the best resource you're finding to stay up to date on what the tariff rates are, what the news is, what's changed from yesterday to today? Where are you guys turning to for information?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as an importer, we obviously have access to a customs broker, so I think that would be your most, easiest access. But even just online, I mean, whitehouse.gov actually does a very good job of detailing out the tariffs and the updates as they go through. There's a lot of literature out there, Wall Street Journal. I mean, staying up to date on that is kind of where I go.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great, one of the things that I love, and I will say I get a lot of my information through the NSI, through the networking actually. We have different groups that we talk on and people are messaging, hey, did you see this, did you hear that, sending articles, and then they continue to get forwarded around too. So part of that community aspect of it and people sending that, I would wake up, I'm California, so I'm 3 hours behind, the East Coast, and I'd wake up to a new tariff something that happened there, and I got it through these messages. So we do get that, but I agree. I also I've made a tighter relationship with my customs broker, and I said, look, you guys, keep me posted as to what's going on as things are changing, and they should know first, hopefully.
Any other sources?
I would just echo the same two.
CNN.
Squawk Box.
Fox.
I think, but in seriousness, I think all of us are navigating AI, and it's remarkable when you use AI, ChatGPT or whatever, I mean, you're getting information.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's not bad.
Jim, can I ask a question? 'Cause
Yeah.
these guys are all my suppliers, essentially. In COVID, not only did prices go up, and as I said, we needed to keep up with that, but there were things that we couldn't get, and that's the kiss of death. If you have nothing to sell, then you're done. So I guess my question to you guys is, do you guys see, I know prices could likely go up, but could we see lack of shipments for some reason? Are you seeing any of that?
What? You're asking us here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, one of the things that I heard recently was that somebody was telling me this just recently, they put 80 ships, 80 carriers down, so they're shipping less, which is going to create more of a supply and demand issue with the carriers again. I don't know, a lot of importers remember when freight rates went from $1,000 a container to $15,000 a container. Well, that's not an unheard of thing that could potentially happen down the road too. So, this whole, we're in the middle of a big negotiation, right? If you look at this, we're living through a major negotiation around the world. And so, what's going to come of it, nobody knows. If anybody knew, then it wouldn't be a negotiation. And so there's people making all kinds of decisions, and those will have the ripple effect. So what I'm thinking is that we will see material shortages a little bit. I think we will see some delays in containers. We'll see some, not just material prices go up due to tariffs. I think, this is my opinion, we may see prices go up just due to freight rates again as well. I think there's going to be a fall off with that.
And if I can add, I think, also there's a risk if you're bringing in material now with the higher tariffs, right? And then all of a sudden in 90 days, they go back to zero. And then as an importer, you're sitting on higher landed cost material and the market's pivoted again. So a lot of importers have really stopped or paused. So we're like running super lean. I mean, I know from our perspective, we're trying to run very lean to be able to pivot in the next 60 days if, he decides to change the tariffs again, which I'm sure they will.
How'd they do, Jeff? Okay?
That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know Chris is not the only person in the audience that has a question. Sal?
Do you see any increase in U.S. material because of the tariffs?
Yeah, so I've actually met with a couple companies who are manufacturing in the U.S. or doing some work. If they're getting raw materials from overseas, which, that the answer is yes, they're going to see cost there. And as we see manufacturing hopefully come more to the U.S., a lot of the equipment that's made is not U.S. equipment, so there's, going to be some of those costs as well.
We certainly saw during COVID prices go up, whether it was COVID related or not. It gave companies an opportunity if they had been lax in increasing their prices, Jeff, as you articulated. So we may see tariffs be the next excuse for why we increased our prices.
I know someone who you could ask. Courier guy right there. Reed.
So the question was, obviously tariffs are impacting imported materials, but what about the domestically produced materials? Reed, any perspective to share?
From a pricing standpoint, everything is going to stay kind of the status quo. If you get into some of the other markets, the tariffs are actually helping the domestic warriors from a monument side, from a commercial cut to size, because we're not competing with those foreign companies as much. So on that side, it's a good thing for the domestic warriors, but obviously on the countertop side, it's a fiasco.
Right.
So.
I think the key is that being nimble to being nimble, to adjust and so forth. Other questions about tariffs or perspectives to add? Yes, Jeremy.
So from a domestic producer standpoint, are you looking to increase capacity to offset what we're maybe not seeing imported? Because that's what the bigger drive is.
Are you asking, are we buying?
I think he has, that's going to read.
Oh,
Yeah, that's gonna
Colster. Reed, that's for you.
Reed, the royalties we're getting from speaking today, we're going to cut you in on this deal.
0% of zero.
So I guess the question is, Reed, for you and your peers in the domestic industry, are you seeing production ramping up?
Well, as Evan explained, like to ramp up, one, you gotta have people, and two, you gotta have steel or equipment, and the equipment takes a year to get by the time you buy it, install it, et cetera. So no, we're not really, for the most part, every warrior / fabricator for the larger stuff, I haven't seen decide to ramp up at this point.
And that's what I'm seeing
Yeah.
as well. So it's from a market standpoint of keeping stone on projects. It's getting to be a no-win how you turn it, at least in the immediate future.
Yeah,
We don't know if it's going to change.
right.
3 o'clock this afternoon, you got to announce something at your happy hour. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it's and I know we didn't have mics on either Jeremy or Reed, but hopefully what you're hearing here is, could the domestic market ramp up production to have it be a competitive marketplace for domestic stone? Of course, but just the sheer cost and time span, and it's going to change tomorrow. That's the other side of this. And I think one thing Evan said, which is really key, is we have to realize we're all part and we're witnessing firsthand a big negotiation. And I often get asked, and my peers that run trade associations, what's our role? Our role is to have opportunities like this where people can communicate and network with each other, because I can have the best database of what's going on in tariffs, but what really needs to happen is where people are sharing best practices with each other on how you're handling it. So, other questions about tariffs? Yes?
I just thought there might be some hidden opportunities for the domestic market. I mean, we're talking about, the tariffs can be so horrible. There has to be some other opportunities for domestic support industry, of some sort, and I'm just wondering what you might see there.
I think, and I'll share a perspective, and then we'll turn over to the panelists, is it's like anything, is every company needs to be nimbled with the basic block and tackle of presenting your products. And just like people are pivoting today with tariffs, this is potentially a sales opportunity, for you to look at domestically produced stone if you weren't previously. But other feedback?
Yeah, I think in some instances, two things. One, it's a math equation, right? If what you're importing all of a sudden becomes equal to or more than what you can acquire domestically, right? You have to be able to pivot. And then the other thing is, at some point people want Italian marble, so you can only get it from Italy. And then what Jeff was saying too is like that level of society who wants to buy that, is that slowly going to shrink as the impact of these tariffs ripple throughout the economy? I think that also is the biggest concern, because we've seen the American public take price increases and roll through things, but if there's not the offset with rates or another situation, it might not happen.
There was one other hand that went up. Yes?
In terms of I think you said keeping stone on projects, has anybody seen, at least in their
let's take this as a chance to poll the audience. So you guys heard the question. Are you seeing that we're keeping stone, and you mentioned quartz as well, on the project, or are your general contractors or developers starting to pull it over concerns of travelers? How many of you are seeing stone products being pulled off of projects as a result of tariffs?
No.
We had a couple hands go up. I counted 4 hands go up. Okay. Any advice on what you're doing to keep stone on the projects?
Day by day, see what happens. They've been seeing, trying to translate if it was like a travertine stone, and they look for porcelain that mimics travertine, or porcelain that mimics marble. So they've kind of been looking into switching into a porcelain stone look.
But again, depends on where the product is, what products already landed here in the States, and all
One of
that.
the biggest questions they ask me is, when sometimes price, all my suppliers have sent, the letters saying price are increasing, or they are increasing May 1st, May 15th. So the question they ask me, why are they doing this right now when the material's been sitting here? Why are they increasing that if it's something that hasn't even come in? It's been one of the number 1 questions of my clients.
Understood. Good perspective. Any other thoughts? Great. Thanks for sharing. We have another hand here, and then Saket.
Have any of you passed the price increase on to a client so far because of the tariff?
What was the question?
Have you already passed on the price increase because the tariff impacted your price?
So we've
I'll let you
seen,
do it.
what's that?
So you can go first.
We've seen some companies instantly enact a price increase. A lot of them we're seeing, like, we sent out something dated May 1st. You might ask, why, if you already have product sitting there? Well, we're getting product coming in at the same time that is, now, because there's a 10% tariff across the board. So all of our stuff coming in today is higher cost as it is. And so we are seeing that. So we've sent it out. The communication is, and I wanted to get back on that. The communication is the key, by the way, just so we're clear. Like, you have projects going or you're working on anything, communicating with people is the most important part. I had a phone call today. Somebody said they want to buy 500 slabs from us. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. Why from us? And they said, well, they're looking for a company that will lock their price down. I said, they're not going to find one, and it's not me. So anybody who's going to lock their price down is saying, hey, I'll put the tariff cost in there. I'll lock it down. But at the end of the day, you have to be careful with that. So yeah, there's nobody. You really have to be communicating clearly on that. So,
Rick, on the consumable side, what are you seeing as far as price adjustments now based on that question?
Yeah, I think, as Evan said, inventory continues to turn. We turn our inventory 9 times a year. So every month, we've got another shipment coming in. So starting in August, when these tariffs started, April, when these tariffs started, we had product already coming in, already ordered. So by the time it got on the boat, it was hit with a tariff. So trying to maintain that, we did what I think I heard Evan say is about May 1st is when we started our price increase. And we'll absorb some of it. We're going to charge some of it. But at the end of the day, we all have to move forward with what the tariff costs are. And we'll have a price increase effective May 1st.
So we have to buy everything today and tomorrow.
If it didn't get on the boat yet, yes.
Great. Yeah. Saket, question or perspective to share?
Question, then, what is the information you guys have about that 90-day, that's 10% situation? Is it based on bill of lading date or receiving date? 8th of April.
Yep. So the question, everybody knows there's a 90-day window, but what's it based on? What is your understanding of the start date of that 90-day window? Billing or receiving?
Shipping.
A ship,
When
yeah.
it ships from country of origin is when that gets tariffed, but it's 10% already that started in April. We've got the 25% on steel
Stainless.
already. There's tariffs that have been enacted since the beginning of April.
Correct, this 10%, this 10%
Yep.
90-day window, when does it end? But do we need to get the container here 8th of July, or bill of lading needs to be 7th of July?
We were charged when it left country of origin.
Yeah, I think the dating is the bill of lading, right? But then you
Yeah.
pay for when it arrives. And then the other point is, like, for China with the 145%, it was a specific date from the last transshipment point. So, we have like 18 containers arriving, and half of them are 145%, and half of them aren't because it was a direct transshipment to the United States. So it gets definitely tricky. But I think the 90 days, it has to sail before the 90th day, and you should be safe.
I've heard both things, it's very confusing. I've heard received by the 8th of July, and we don't know which way it's leading.
Yeah.
So my opinion, again, I'm going to make opinions here, so don't quote me on it, but I feel like, what's going on in this negotiation is not to screw the American people. And if you did that to where on the 90th day, whatever's coming in, you're paying the bigger tariff, we're all screwed, right? So my gut tells me that that's not going to be the case, that it's going to be the ET8 or the ETD date, right? So as long as it ships before, the 90th day, but again, don't quote me on it because I'll be receiving a bill in the mail saying you were wrong and you owe us $250,000. So
It goes back to the advice from your customs broker.
Yeah.
Making sure that they are up to speed.
I think that's, because the 25% was the day it came into the country, but then the reciprocal tariffs were date of sailing, so also the information doesn't even
Right.
align.
No, that custom broker is telling me.
One thing and then the other, right?
It's very confusing right now.
yeah.
Okay. Other perspectives, questions? We've got a hand right over here. Yes, sir.
So since the tariff is assessed on the price that you pay, how are you calculating the value of that tariff to your client? Are you taking 10% of your retail sales price and passing it on? Are you finding some value on the price that you pay? Are you being transparent with the contractors so you can turn around and try to recover that cost from the end user?
So I think the question is the price increase, regardless of what the tariff amount was, are you doing it on your cost? Are you doing it on the retail cost? What are you seeing in the industry as best practice? Not to put you on the spot what your company's doing, but what are you seeing?
I think there's a few different things, right? We're a big distributor of Kohler sinks, and so what we've seen from them coming in May is they're doing a blended price increase, right? It's not 10, it's not 0, it's in the middle, and it's different by product. So I think some companies are doing that. Obviously 145% on cost doesn't equate to 145 on the retail price. So I think it's somewhere in the middle that, you land on to try to maintain either the same margin dollars or margin percent.
And I think, Rick, one of the things you said earlier is every business has to go through the decision of how much are you going to absorb yourself versus pass on, and that's going to vary from company to company, I would imagine.
Well, I think we negotiate with our suppliers to see how much they're going to absorb, how much are we going to absorb, and I think to Katie's point, you try to maintain your margin and not gouge one way or the other, but how do you support the industry but still have a profitable
And be
business?
competitive, right? Yeah.
And then the competitive environment is the whole next question because everybody's doing it differently.
Right.
So it's one thing to say we're going to raise our prices the same, and if nobody else does, then that's
Zero
difficult to compete.
sales. Yeah.
Right, so you have a dynamic that's interesting depending on what product it is, when it happens, what your competition's doing, but trying to maintain your margin. If you felt that was a healthy margin, you want to maintain that, and you try to work both sides, whatever you can get from your supplier to help support it, and what you can officially pass on.
And I would imagine best practice is go look at all your contracts, particularly for projects that you have in the works, is what wiggle room do you have, don't have, and then it comes down to relationships with your customers of what you want to look
Absolutely.
for.
Well, I think there's one thing that I think you'll see everywhere, and we see it on all of our competitors' websites, all the information that's out there is, I think we try to do the best we can to notify our customers and our partners when the price increase is going to happen and what it's going to be. And because we don't know, we can't send that out yet. So you see the general email or a letter that has went out to everybody that says, okay, officially, we have no idea what the hell's going on. So we're going to let you know that we are going to do our best to manage it and work to maintain a neutral price if we can. But effectively now, we're looking at it every day. And we have 4,000 SKUs that we inventory, 7,000 SKUs that we sell. It's really hard to say which category, which item is going to be impacted at what percent.
And what's striking, when we started and opened up, every one of you said, be transparent, communicate with your customers and suppliers, And even in the case, Rick, that you described, we don't know what the heck is going on, but we're here. That's still communication.
Doing the best we can, as soon as we can.
Great.
And if I could just say, I think this is just like everything. Never let a good crisis go to waste. We got a crisis at hand. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to hit it spot on because you're talking about a moving target in the dark and you don't know where you're shooting. But truth is there's a lot of people that are thinking strategically about what can we do, how can we be strategic. Like, for example, right now where we know we have a window of opportunity before those tariffs potentially come in, you can ramp up on inventory. You can be stocked up on inventory. So if those tariffs do come into play, you're okay. You have a little bit of buffer time to allow those negotiations to continue. So those are some tricks, that you can do. To your point on the if everybody's raising their prices based on that, some people do. Some people take advantage of the opportunity to say, hey, we're raising the prices. Yes, we're going to win on some of the products that we didn't have the margins in, and we're going to lose on some other projects, products. But there's always opportunity in crisis, and I suggest to just be real strategic and methodical about the decisions that are being made.
And this is also one of those times, leverage a trade show like Coverings, in January, Stone Expo, in September, Marmol Mac, to connect with industry friends and what are you hearing, what are best practices, be involved in those types of opportunities as well. Well, we've been talking about tariffs for quite a bit, and that conversation will continue tomorrow night at 5:30. Come have a drink with us. We can talk more about tariffs. But let's segue a little bit into Silica.
Yeah, we better show
Okay.
Abundantly clear.
Do you know that there are companies being sued because of silicosis? I think we all do. And so this is something that is not something that is to be taken lightly. But for purposes of Silica, I do want to pause before we start opening up the questions, and I do want to take 2 minutes. And I just want to highlight a couple things because I don't want to assume you know what you know. And I want to do a huge shout out. We have a sister trade association, ISFA, that's been a great partner with the NSI for Silica. My friend Marissa, their CEO, is here. Marissa, put your hand up, say hi. Thank you, Marissa. But everyone's aware that there are a lot of stuff going on, and all eyes right now in the United States has been on California, but it is so important that you do not think this is just a California issue. This is a global issue, okay? And all the headlines are out there. By show of just some quick statistics, this is as of March, and I want to thank my colleague Mark Mario, who runs our safety program for the NSI, for pulling this data together. But as of March, in California, 258 cases of silicosis, 15 deaths, and you can see that. And here's where we believe the vast majority of silicosis cases are coming from, is facilities that look like this. Unfortunately, we live in a country and a global community that this does exist, a lot of dry activity, but my hope is, for all the fabricators in the room, do not have the false hope that because you are using wet practices, you are safe. You have to do the due diligence of monitoring and all of that, good best practices. But obviously, a lot of the headlines are coming from fabrication facilities like this. This is not the stone industry I know, but this does exist in the stone industry, okay? A lot of court cases. Let's just be frank. Evan, how many cases have you been named in?
I got my 23rd case last week.
Okay.
And I'm on the low end.
And he's on the low end, okay? But there's a lot of cases in California. There are cases in other states as well. All the regulatory agencies, whether it's OSHA or MSHA, there's an emphasis program on going after silica. You guys were all aware that in California there were temporary standards. Those are now permanent. Again, this is public information, but what we are hoping is that our industry will transform. This is the industry that I know. Do you see dust? I don't see dust in this facility. We're actually giving a tour of public health officials here, and I want you to know that there is a lot of training available, okay? The Natural Stone Institute has training in English and Spanish. My friends at ISFA have training on silica, but we are heavy into science. There are a lot of reports coming, and any fabricators, installers, marble setters, we've got a lot of resources now available to you. We've had training forever, but there's more resources available, so please stop down at our booth. If you are not aware of this training, just go online to our Silica page. But we want you to know that we're leading the science. There's a lot yet to come. This is an expensive endeavor, okay? But we're doing what we know is right, okay? And you might be asking yourself, what can you do to reduce workplace silica? Is you need to get behind this, okay? Fortunately, a number of leading manufacturers, a number of leading stone distributors, a number of quarriers have all contributed financially to help us advance this and do more. A huge shout out, Rick, to our foundation. All the updates to our silica training were funded by our foundation. So just be aware that there's a lot of resources for you. If you have a company in your community that you know can do better, refer them to the resources that are available. Because between the associations and the regulatory agencies themselves, we have a lot of resources. Now, do you all know there's resources available? Hopefully, yes. Come down and see us at the booth, see us on the fabricator stage, see us at the party. Evan, this is just a California issue. Take it from there.
Yeah. So for me, this has been a big thing, and primarily because I'm in the heart of it. And I don't know that many people understand the breadth and the depth of this situation. The gravity of the situation is going to be tremendous, and it is going to spread throughout the country. What you guys saw in Australia, where they just banned they banned quartz, for example, saying that should fix the problem. That was a rash decision that they made over there. Here, things are a little bit different, and realistically, I'd love to sit there and say that they're taking our advice and suggestions to create a safer environment. I don't know that we're feeling that way too much, and the truth is, I can just say, if you don't know a lot about it, get familiarized with it. Follow us on social media too, because there's always different posts and stuff that are going on out there, but it's something that is going to spread. And I think we're seeing it, New Jersey, we've seen it go to the east, New Jersey, Colorado. Who here has silica cases in their state, silica lawsuits?
Yeah.
Okay, not a lot, but it's coming to a state near you.
What state is that? Which state, yeah? Oh, you're in
California as well. So, yeah, so we have it really, really heavy there, but it is going to spread. I have to put the fear out there. Why? Because I think at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to make sure that we help educate people, that we can communicate this situation and get ahead of it. Because as long as we allow this to continue, it's going to really hurt our industry as a whole. And so I can be an advocate for talking about, get some knowledge about it, understand it, and really work to protect if you're a fabricator, work to protect your fabricators. If you're a distributor, you have a lot of fabricators buying from you. I know we used to have them coming in covered in dust, and those would be the ones that I'd go and talk to and be like, do you have any idea what you're doing? So it's devastating what's happening right now.
You run the numbers. If you are fortunate to have an insurance policy that covers this situation, every lawsuit is hitting on your deductible, and at some point your insurance runs out. Mm-hmm. To the point, Evan, that some companies are looking at?
Bankruptcy. Bankruptcy seems to be the exit strategy for a lot of companies right now. Now, I know most of you here don't want to sit here and think about, do we ever have to file bankruptcy because we're running everything right, but the situation that's out there could force that upon you. The reality is that's a common conversation happening in California right now. Is bankruptcy our way out? Is bankruptcy the way that we have to? And that is sad that we have to go that route. So I'm thankful. I'm extremely thankful for what Jim here does, and I'll just let cat out of the bag. What Jim here does for the NSI and ISFA, what they're doing to get ahead of the situation, because at the end of the day, it's to protect our industry. And so I hope when everybody leaves here today, you leave with a little bit of, I better look into that because I don't want it to come hit us. But we get to feel it firsthand, and it's not a fun thing.
The latest study that we're doing, there's a paper that was issued by Georgia Tech, and they went in, it wasn't even really a study, it was more of a paper, but they had data from a lot of fabrication facilities that were not in compliance, had issues, and they now have formed their opinions, and they're painting a side of our industry that the public health officials and the government officials are listening to. So what are we doing? Their paper's skewed to this extreme. We went out and we now have about 20 fabrication facilities that have done medical surveillance, and we're now doing a new study, a new paper to show the good side of the industry, and we have to stay ahead of this. Some of you were around when there was the radon crisis. You know, you're going to get cancer from your granite countertop, and you saw what we went through as an industry 18 years ago. We're going through something similar, just really different. But there's a lot of parallels between what we're going on, so get ahead of this, absolutely. Other perspectives, fabricators. Jeff, I am using water in my shop, so I'm okay.
Yeah, I talked to a fair number of fabricators, and that seems to be, it's almost like they feel like they're spectators on the side, kind of watching the game be played instead of looking at themselves as being part of the game. And that's really frustrating. And I think we all have an obligation to do what we can do, and that means to understand what it is, what the problem is. It means to do the trainings, all the things you're supposed to be doing, so everything's transparent, everybody knows what's going on. Monitoring for silica is like having a speedometer in your car. Literally, I mean, you can not look at your speedometer and be mad that you got a ticket, but like there's a way to tell objectively if you're generally okay, and that's monitoring. It's not that hard to do. I think people are, if I told you that the limit, which is like 50 micrograms, which is 50 millionths of a gram, it's like the head of a penny, Abe Lincoln, the amount that fits on that head in a 10 by 10 room, you're at the limit. That's how small it is. So if you think about that and take that in perspective, if you're monitoring and you're below the limits and you have less silica than what fits on the head of a penny, like the little head, then how do you feel about that? I feel pretty good that no one that works for me is going to be sick. So it's not complex, but it's frustrating because if they do these things like emergency temporary measures in California where they're putting respirators on people and negative pressure suits, and like, I don't know about you guys, but it's not easy still to get people to work. Nobody's going to want to work in these conditions with respirators and negative pressure suits, and it's plus they think they're going to work for an unsafe place, right? So we have to get a hold of this, and each one of us is responsible for a piece of it.
Rick, Katie, any other perspectives to add? We're going to open it up for more questions about silica.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say one comment is it's not just quartz. I mean, I think you talk to some fabricators and they're like, oh, we don't cut quartz. But if some of these actions and emergency orders come through, they're talking about all natural stones, anything with a percentage of silica. So, like, to Jeff's point, it's the responsibility of everyone in this industry to make sure we're doing our part to keep everyone safe and be aware of the risks.
When some of the lawsuits in Spain over silica hit, I was in Brazil, and I had a lot of our Brazilian friends say, Jim, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to promote natural stone because this is just a quartz issue. Listen, if you ban product A because it has silica in it, what are the fabricators that aren't following the rules going to do? They're going to move to product B, and that probably has silica in it as well. So, when you look at the government regs, they don't differentiate. It's silica-bearing products. So this is an industry issue, and that's why particularly in California, and Mark commented to me, my bag's under my eyes. Well, I'm tired, okay? How many trips to California have we been? But when you look at the regs, you know, it's silica-bearing products. And we've got to just take care of our industry and focus on employee safety. And to Jeff's point, everybody should have, if you're in the fabrication world, there's a speedometer, there are rules to follow, and there's a lot of best practices being happened. So network with your industry peers on what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a good point. You talked about cutting wet. We've always cut wet, and we have a really clean shop, relatively. Some of you have been there. And we had some hot spots in our shop when we tested. As clean as it was and as wet as it is, we still had hot spots, shockingly. So, but they're easy to address if you know where they are.
Yep.
And the only way you can do that is to test.
Yep, very good. Questions, perspectives about silica from the audience? Reed.
Any legislation you're seeing in California and otherwise?
Yeah, so the question was, is there legislation? There is actually in California a piece of legislation. It's the second attempt, but it's known as, if you just Google SB 20 in California, and it is what would require, in essence, a certification or a licensure program for fabricators. Fabricators would have to apply to get that license, and to get the license or the certification, they would have to shown they're in compliance with OSHA, they've done training, they've done this, they've done that, okay? Oh, by the way, only licensed or credentialed fabricators in California will be able to purchase slab material. So all of our stone distributors in California would only be able to sell to a certified fabricator. So that piece of legislation is there. It has some support. The big key in California for our California friends is it will only get through the legislature if it is budget neutral. There's a huge deficit in California. Just think about the wildfires. There was a deficit before the wildfires, but we're going to have to show. So what's happening right now is a number of distributors and manufacturers are working with industry, and we're trying to figure out how this could be paid for so that it's budget neutral in California. What's that mean? Combination of fees for fabricators to get the license, an assessment on all the slab material, fines for people that are breaking the rules, and hopefully there's a pool enough money there that this can be enforced. So that piece of legislation is being worked through in California right now. California is a tricky state to get anything through. You know, my personal hope, you asked for opinions, is at some point we can find a business-friendly state that's smaller, that we can get it through. But you know, one possible way to solve this situation is you can't get the product unless you've proven that you have demonstrated that your facility is doing everything possible to keep your employees safe. Other questions, comments?
Jim, you got a question over there.
Yes.
It was in relation to this. I was wondering, with the current administration promising to lessen regulations, if that, you know, they're still going to be pushing this as much as they have or more.
Yeah. So I'm going to paraphrase what you said so everyone has it. Current federal administration is obviously business friendly, less regulations, less government interference with business. How's that impacting things? Perspective.
My mind goes immediately to the lawsuits and money. As long as that's available, that's the gravity that's going to keep it going.
If you weren't aware, Secretary Kennedy, Health and Human Services, they announced recently that they are pulling funding from NIOSH. How many of you are familiar with who NIOSH is? It's a division of the CDC. They do a lot of compliance, a lot of research. They've been fairly friendly. We've used them a lot. I wrote a letter to Secretary Kennedy expressing concern. Not concern about trimming government waste. I think we're all in favor of trimming government waste. But man, I certainly don't want funding taken away from stuff that's helping us keep our employees safe. So the big concern is that going to be a foreshadowing of funding being taken away from OSHA or MSHA? And let's be honest, there's many of us, as we look, Marissa, at California, if OSHA would have just enforced the darn rules they've got, we wouldn't need to be doing all this stuff. So it's a lot of limited resources, a lot of finger pointing, but it is a concern. Other perspectives? Other comments, questions, perspectives?
Over there.
Oh, in the
Back right, back
We got
left.
some waving.
We got
over here.
one in the
Waving.
back, and then we'll go over here. Yes?
He really has a question.
How are you setting up your workspace to prevent hotspots with respect to
Okay. Jeff, so the question was, you found a hotspot, what do you do, or how are you setting up your facility to notice the hotspots?
The plan contains all those things, so it's not one thing, one formula you follow. You just have to go area by area, and as part of your plan, you're recording what you're supposed to be doing, and that gets trained to your employees, and then that's supposed to happen on a regular interval. And you just keep knocking the moles down until there's no more moles, and then you're good.
Key is constant monitoring, check and adjust, adjust accordingly. We have a
Yeah.
question over here, comment?
So where does the silica stop? Obviously, a lot of the members of the panel are in manufacturing, but when we're talking about installation and fabrication on site, that, as you said, they're using a grinder and water bottle. Where does this stop?
It's a great question. So the comment that was made is, let's talk about the install side. Where does it stop? Because it's not just in the fabrication facility, but it's also on the install site. And for general installation, there's a separate, here in the United States, a separate OSHA rule. There's a table that governs installation. But the big concern is that anybody can get the product. So at the end of the day, my hope is that you can't get the product unless you can demonstrate good best practices. But he does say, where does it stop? A squeezy bottle on the install site does not solve the problem. It gives you that false hope as well. But it's not going to be solved with one thing. It's going to be a lot of diligence on a lot of our parts.
Buddy?
Yes?
The other part of what he just said is that more and more homeowners know about this, and if we, do some work in the
Yep.
driveway, cut a notch or something like that, they're gonna say, hey, what's this white stuff sitting in my, this little pile of my driveway? So, it's, do the best we can to, take care of everything properly in the shops.
And Buddy's a past president of our institute. There's been times we've been here and the entire conversation was about workforce development, employee retention. If you're a company doing it right, I would market the heck out of what you're doing, for your employees. Market the heck out of these best practices. And market the heck out of it with your designers and with your consumers to say, yes, our prices are what our prices are because of all these things that we're doing. We're buying the best safety stuff from consumable distributors like Rick. We're focused on this as well. As we wrap up Silica, any advice or perspectives on Silica you guys want to add before we close down?
I just want to say one last thing here real quick. The first lawsuit that settled for $52 million. The person got $52 million. Now that was broken down based off of the fabricators that they worked for, distributors, manufacturers, and then he got a little slap on the wrist, 2.5% of that he was responsible for. So when you think about $52 million, and that's what the insurance companies are having to pay out. Now, just to be clear, it was actually more than $52 million. It was $52 million that settled in court, and then there was a lot of people who settled outside of court too. That was one case. I know people that have over 100 lawsuits right now that are happening. These attorneys are training other attorneys on how to go after Silica lawsuits. They're teaching other attorneys how to do this. So this is a thing that's going to grow. If you follow the money trail, this is a thing that's going to grow. So again, I put it out there because I think it's really important to be aware and to really leave with the fact of saying, are we doing the best we can to be in compliance? If you're a distributor, we have, and I don't know if Prop 65, it's a California thing or not, but we have to label everything. We have to have all kinds of Silica information, signs everywhere. People sign for it when they pick up stuff. We're doing everything we can to proactively protect ourselves. So look into that, meet with me or someone later to find out what we're doing, because at the end of the day, now's the time to protect yourself and to protect your employees and customers as well. So it's a real thing that's happening. So
Katie, closing comments?
I mean, I just think, Evan, you did such a great job. That was a very good summation. But yeah, I mean, knowledge is power. I think, refer to the NSI. Jim and the whole team at the NSI have done a phenomenal job of getting the information to the hands of the industry. So capitalize on that, attend these events, talk to people. It's almost like an insurmountable problem when you really start to go down the supply chain of our industry. So make sure you're protected and take care of your employees.
Yep. And on our end, Mark, raise your hand. Guys, see Mark down in our booth, see him at the party. Mark, you'll be at the party, right? Yeah. Okay. But see Mark, he can answer questions because he's in the trenches with a lot of stone companies and he's hearing best practices as well. Jeff, anything to add?
I kind of said my piece already, but I want to add that, we go around and we talk to different vendors and whatnot, and members of NSI, non-members of NSI, and I don't know that people realize how hard certain people are working. It's Mark, it's Marissa, it's Jim. I mean, these guys have insane schedules, and they are going to California, and they're at the table with legislators fighting on behalf of our industry. So when I talk about, supporting NSI or ISFA, that's what you're supporting. You might not get some, immediate benefit or thing in your pocket, but you're supporting the longevity of the industry by doing it. And I can tell you that these guys are working really, really hard.
I just heard $100.
I know, $100.
Rick,
And
anything
come
to
to the
add?
party.
Any
Just
perspective?
kind of echoing the shout out to you and to Marissa and what you guys are doing for us as an industry to keep us informed, giving us the knowledge necessary, but the employee safety is so important.
Yep.
And when you see the end result of what's happening, it's make sure you're taking care of your people and what we're trying to do, and so not profit over people, and I think there's a big opportunity there, so. And I'm really looking forward to this party we keep talking about.
Hey, would you do me a huge favor? But would you please thank our panelists and thank each other for your time today? You might be thinking, these are two big topics and I don't know what to do. Knowledge is power. Learn how you can help. Get involved in the associations and network with your friends on best practices. Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you down on the show floor.